So I'm not going to go too far into this because Mia's going to talk about herself, I think, near the end of her presentation. But she's vice president at Morgan Stanley in the credit risk department. She's also got a number of what we would call co-curricular, but I think are service volunteer and kind of social responsibility activities within the company and within the community. She's the co-chair for the Salt Lake Asian Employees Network. She champions recruiting efforts. Before she came to Morgan Stanley, she was working with Goldman Sachs, which she may talk about or you may want to ask her about. Goldman was the company that I became familiar with because they came here to BYU and said, we want to recruit poli-sci and international relations majors. We're interested in liberal arts students. We want to talk to your students. And so me was trained and had experience there at Goldman Sachs here in Salt Lake, and brings that perspective to her work at Morgan Stanley. Again, lots of other interesting connections. She's a board member of Women of the World, of the Utah Asian Chamber of Commerce, the annual Asian Festival Planning Committee, and one of the coolest things, she was an honoree for the 2022 Utah Business 40 Under 40. Probably one of the most exciting things about me is that she used to work here at the Kennedy Center when she was a student. She helped students develop experiential learning and international education opportunities. And so that's another interesting perspective on her back. And she's a competitive weightlifter and powerlifter. So there are lots of things you may want to ask her about as we go along. She likes hiking, traveling, food, spending time with family, friends. She has 4 pets, a dog and 3 cats, and is proud of her Vietnamese heritage and proud to be a BYU alum. So with that, we'll turn this over to Nguyen.
Well, hi everyone. It's an honor to be here today. So as Corey mentioned, my name is Nguyen. I am a vice president at Morgan Stanley. Before getting started, I would like to thank Corey and the Kennedy Center and Professor Ryan for having me here today. It's always great to be back here on campus. I'm a proud BYU grad, so I'm always grateful of the experience and the education that I was fortunate to receive at BYU. So today I'm excited to talk to you about, number 1, Morgan Stanley. That's my current employer right now. And the 2, my personal experience in the finance industry. And lastly, we will go over some tips and tricks for resumes. I know the business school does a really good job with resumes, so I'm hoping to share some of that knowledge here in the Kennedy Center as well. And hopefully we will have some time at the end for Q&A, so feel free to prep some questions at the end as I share my experience in the next 30 minutes. So I started my career in finance after graduating from BYU 10 years ago. If I asked my 21-year-old self, would I be in finance this long? Absolutely not. I was just sharing with Professor Ryan before the meeting, I wanted to be in hospitality. But then the opportunity at Goldman just came up, and I took the opportunity, and I was with Goldman for 8.5 years, and now I got recruited to Morgan Stanley last year. So I'm here representing Morgan Stanley, but also I do want to talk about different opportunities that you can explore within the finance industry. So by raise of hands, how many of you know who Morgan Stanley is? Okay, there's quite a few. There's a few that don't know. Can anyone tell me what we do? Or just throw it out there. Or if you, I guess, maybe raise your hand, and then I do want to give out some swags at the end if you get it right. Okay. Any other guess? Should I call on someone? How about you?
Yeah, you guys are very big. You do a lot of banking. You also do a lot of real estate stuff. I don't know what you guys do mostly now. Yeah, you're big, very large bank.
Yes, so you can consider us as a bank, but we call ourselves a financial service firm. So we offer various different kind of services within finance. So real estate is obviously one of them, but biggest is probably investing. We do a lot of investing for our clients, and I can talk through more of that throughout the presentation as well. But it's one of the biggest financial firms globally. We have presence in many different countries. We have a big presence in Utah, and big presence in New York, Baltimore, Ohio, at least in the U.S., but we do have very big presence in other countries as well. So this is our CEO. The Morgan Stanley was founded in 1935, so we have been around for some time now. And part of our culture is we really focus on putting our clients first. Everything we do, we focus on what can we do best for our clients' interest. And since they founded Morgan Stanley, we do focus on the 5 core values of Morgan Stanley. The first one is do the right thing. So everything that we do at Morgan Stanley always has to go through check and balances. So anything you hear on the news of, oh, maybe Wall Street is not following regulations or whatever that might not be 100% true, just because as an insider, I know we have to follow many regulations from the SEC, from many different countries' regulations as well. So we have to make sure we follow doing the right thing for our clients, for our employees. And the second one is putting our clients first, meaning everything we do, like I mentioned, we will have to make sure we are in the interest of the clients. And if the client wants to do something that might not be the most beneficial, or if it's risky, or if it's not following the rules or the laws of the country, we have to make sure that we protect the clients and we protect Morgan Stanley. So that's one way we put our clients first, to make sure that, yes, we want to make our clients money, but we also want to protect them from any risk. The third one is lead with exceptional ideas. We always look for new ideas. That's why we come to campus to recruit, because we want fresh ideas coming from our students when they come through the door of Morgan Stanley. One of the exciting things right now that the firm is doing is exploring AI. So we are one of the first banks that started using AI to improve our client services. So it's a very exciting time right now at Morgan Stanley. And the last two is probably my personal favorite, just because of my passion for giving back and my focus on diversity. So as Corey mentioned, I do a lot of community work and also diversity initiative within the walls of Goldman Sachs and also now Morgan Stanley. That's just through a passion of mine, and then also just giving back to where I went to school, like BYU, the Kennedy Center. I used to work here, so it's always dear to my heart to be able to come back and give back to the students. So working at Morgan Stanley has given me the opportunity to be able to use the platform within Morgan Stanley to get funding for different nonprofits within Utah, or also come back and recruit and train students on campus. So for Morgan Stanley in Utah, we do have a few different offices. So our main 2 offices here in Utah is South Jordan and Sandy. So we have around 1,800 people. So it's a pretty big office here, locally here. And then where I sit is actually downtown Salt Lake City. I sit within credit risk, and we have a small presence within downtown. And we do have 3 different branches as well, doing financial advisory services, and that's where a lot of our financial reps meet with our clients. So those are the presence of Utah, and we have around, like I mentioned, 1,800 people in Utah. And again, this is one of my passion, is really getting involved in different affinity networks. So within Morgan Stanley, Utah, we have all these employee networks, the Asian, the Black family network, Latino network. I started the Asian network for Morgan Stanley locally here last year, and we have been able to connect with a lot of local partners within the community to raise money for Asian students within the state of Utah, for example. And then we are a partner with Alpha, which is the Latino professional network globally. So we did come to campus, I think yesterday, to do an event for Alpha at BYU. So there's many different partners and many things that we do to get different employees involved. And if you have a passion for this, Morgan Stanley will give you a platform to be able to do that. And within different functions within Morgan Stanley, and I know some of these words might sound scary because you might not have background in finance. I was in your shoes myself. I did marketing and I did geography, so I didn't really know anything about finance before I get started at Goldman. But it's okay. We will teach you everything you need to know about the job, but do get familiar with some of these terms as you go through school, just in case you do end up in finance, so you don't have to learn from scratch like myself. So within Morgan Stanley Utah, we have a few different divisions. So one is wealth management, which we, just by the name, we help clients manage their money, their wealth. And those clients are normally the high net worth and ultra high net worth clients, meaning they have, I would say, millions of dollars. A lot of the clients are in that range. And we also have the more wealth management teams that cater to more of the mass. That's what we call the E-Trade. So I'm not sure if everyone knows what E-Trade is. So they are a fintech that Morgan Stanley acquired a few years ago. So they are the ones that, us can open an account and do day trading if needed, or we can have saving and checking accounts. So that's on the wealth management. Within operations, and that's the biggest presence of the division within Morgan Stanley. Wealth management, we support the financial advisor that sit on wealth management. So operation is pretty much the backbone of Morgan Stanley. We help trade to go through, we help onboard the clients, we have to make sure everything that we do follow regulations. So without operations, we will not be able to serve the clients. So it's a very big focus in Utah that we have operations here, and we are also building out our technology presence here as well. So if you are interested in any of these teams or fields, or if you have questions in detail of these teams, I'm happy to answer after, or you can always email me, send me your question through LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn. Just because I know these terms might be a little bit scary right now, but we can talk through in deeper context to give you an idea of what they are. So one of the programs that we offer for senior students right now is our full-time operation analyst program. So it's a 3-year program. You will go through, you will be able to experience a few different teams within operations, and you can learn more about operations. The application is open right now, so you can apply, and I think the deadline will be coming up pretty soon. So if you are interested and you are graduating either in December or May, you should apply, because each of the cohorts will start in January and then in the summer. There's a contact for the recruiter on the slide, so feel free to note that down, or even note my contact information down after the meeting, and we can talk through you what this program is. As you can see on here, all majors will be considered. We want to hire the best, the most diverse students, so we don't just look at the business students. Like I mentioned, I was fortunate to graduate from the business school, but I also have background in geography, social studies. And most of my colleagues at Goldman and Morgan Stanley, they actually didn't do finance. A lot of them, if they came from BYU, a lot of them came from social studies. One of my managers was a piano major. So we hire just the best people that we can find. So, and at the end, if you have questions, we can go through this program in detail. And one of the perks of working at a big bank like Morgan Stanley, you do get a lot of good benefits. And every time I go to the doctor, they always tell me, you have really good insurance. So that's one of the biggest perks that we offer to our employees. Our 401k matching program is really good as well. And one of the exciting things that I do like about Morgan Stanley is the stock purchase plan, meaning you can buy our stocks at a 10% discount. Most banks, you don't get that. I was at Goldman Sachs, and they didn't offer that. I couldn't invest in stocks for my career at Goldman, but now at Morgan Stanley I can. So if you want a little bit extra income besides just working, investing is one way you can do it. The other thing is we do offer a tuition reimbursement. So one of the cool thing about Morgan Stanley, you do not have to graduate from college to be able to get a job at Morgan Stanley. If you are going to school, they are willing to hire you, but the commitment is you have to work there 40 hours a week. But they will help you pay for school. So that's one of the cool things about Morgan Stanley that Goldman Sachs didn't have. At Goldman, you have to graduate from college to be able to work there. But at Morgan Stanley, they do give that flexibility with students to be able to recruit more. And the other perks is the gym pass. If you go to the gym and you want to get reimbursed, so the firm will reimburse you on that. There's a lot of travel discounts that I have used before. And then one of the things I know BYU students always ask is about leave for new parents. So Morgan Stanley do offer 4 months for male employee, and then up to 5 months for female employees when they have a new baby. And not only focusing on new parents, but also adoption as well. You will get the same benefits as having a newborn. So there's a lot of exciting benefits, and if you have questions at the end about this, we can go through that. So a little bit of my background. So as you can see, the Vietnamese flag. I'm very proud to be Vietnamese. My parents are actually here with me. They don't speak English, and earlier today I did share with, people, the few professors who are here. My parents, they never graduated from college. I am the first generation in my family, the first one in my family to graduate from college. My dad finished 4th grade. My mom only finished high school. But they work really, really hard their whole life to give me the opportunity to be here. And I'm always very grateful to be their daughter and also a Vietnamese daughter. When I was at BYU, I did geography and marketing, like I mentioned. So my goal was never to be in finance. My goal was to be in hospitality. But I went to a recruiting event kind of similar to this, and I really like what Goldman Sachs has to say. So I applied and had the opportunity to work there for 8+ years. And within college, I did a lot of things. I was the president of the Vietnamese Student Association here. I was in the vice president for different business clubs. I did Washington Seminar for a semester in Washington, D.C. I worked at the Kennedy Center and also went on a study abroad program. I was a teaching assistant. I did ROTC training program, so you can see the range of a lot of the things I got myself involved in at BYU. And it's the experience at BYU really shaped who I am today as a person and also as a professional as well, because I learned so much from all the professors here. One of my professors is sitting here. Thank you for coming and support. And I met Corey here when I was working at the Kennedy Center. I worked for Aaron Rose. I don't know if anyone knows about him, but I worked for him. And one of my favorite experience at BYU was my study abroad experience. And I'm so grateful that I was able to do that. And within my career in finance, I have been in finance for 10+ years now. Majority of my time was at Goldman Sachs. And I got recruited to Morgan Stanley last year. Right now, I do credit risk, meaning we check our clients. So I'm at credit risk for lending. So we would check for clients to see if they are credit worthy to lend to. So think of when you apply for a credit card. The credit card company will have to check your credit score to make sure that you're not going to default for any of the loans or the spending that you're going to have on their credit card. But I do that for very ultra high net worth clients. We review the investment portfolios to make sure that they are credit worthy. And while I'm at Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley, I'm very active in different diversity initiatives. And I love recruiting. I love coming back to campus to recruit, to find talents for the firm I work for. So that's why I'm here today. And I was fortunate enough to be selected as one of the Utah Business 40 under 40 last year. Besides my career in finance, I'm also a competitive lifter. My coach for a long time, he's actually sitting here. He's a professor at BYU. And he found me just randomly at Gold's Gym when I was lifting in south of campus. So that is also one of the experiences that shaped who I am today, just because of the dedication, the discipline that I have to put to be able to be successful in both my career and in lifting. As Corey mentioned, I'm very active in the community locally here, so I sit on a few different boards, and I love to travel. I love meeting people. So that's just one of my passions, is to meet people from different countries. When I travel, I try to talk to the locals as much as I can. Even if I don't know the language, I will find a way to talk to the locals. So that's a little bit about me. And I will go over a few of my general advice that has helped me at school, and also when I started building out my career and get me to where I am today. So in college, just a quick thing that I talked to Corey in the past is I feel like a lot of students don't know how to write business emails. And that's one of the biggest pet peeves for people at the banks when you write them novels in emails. We don't have the time of the day to look at novels. So you need to learn how to write things very concisely, straight to the point, to make sure that you deliver whatever you want to deliver to your clients or your colleagues the shortest words possible. I know outside the business school, when you learn how to write, you want to use a lot of fancy words, so you sound smart. But in the business setting, we don't do that. So make sure that you take business writing class if you can. There's a course in the business school that offers that, and I'm so grateful that I took that class. That helped me a lot as I grow in my career. And the other class I would recommend, any Excel class you can take, you should do that. It will be very useful for you, not just when you work at the bank. Any job outside of the bank, you will use Excel as well. So make sure you try to learn as much as you can, because you have the opportunity to learn now, because it will be very difficult after you graduate to try to learn, because you won't have time. So do it now when you can. So those are probably the two classes I would recommend, at least on the hard skills. And then the second one is try to get involved as much as you can in different things on campus. Like I mentioned, I was very involved in different student clubs. I won one of the case competitions in the marketing department. So those opportunities will help you with your confidence, will help you with leadership, will help you build your network. And that's the third point I want to mention as well. Some of the people I met at BYU are still some of my closest friends because of the things that we did together in student clubs or case competitions, because we went through all these things together and we built a rapport, and we can stay friends and professional friends till now. So try to find those people who will lift you up, who will teach you things, and stay friends with them when possible. And the last thing is enjoy your college experience. Just because you might think it's hard now, wait till you are a professional and I'm working. It's a lot harder. So try to enjoy your college experience, get involved, meet people as much as you can. And in terms of building your career in finance, the number one things that I look for when I hire someone is, are you humble? Are you coachable? Are you willing to take feedback? Because when you grow in these firms, you meet so many different people, you will learn from them. And I will share some of my experience and the feedback I got throughout my career. So one of the experience I had was in India. When I first went to India for a 6-month assignment, I just carry myself as how I would carry myself in the U.S. when I work at Goldman Sachs. And, I'm very assertive. I want to get things done. But when you go to a new country, you want to make sure you know your audience. You want to know what the culture they have. And one of the managers pulled me into a room and told me, hey, you can't do that here. You need to tone down. And obviously, at the moment, I was like, what do you mean? I'm just doing my job. But you have to realize each country, each office of even your global company will have its own culture. So learn their culture and listen to the feedback when people give you. Feedback is a gift. Even though at the moment it can be painful. You might cry for 3 days after you get the feedback. But people care enough to give you that feedback. Take it, work on it. And maybe it might not be true to you, but that's still the perception that people have of you. So you want to work on it and make sure that you can turn that around. And like I said, that's the number one thing we look for people is, are you coachable, right? And the other thing I will share is another feedback I got at the very start of my career at Goldman. For whatever reason, after being very involved in college, I came to Goldman Sachs. I was scared. I didn't know anyone. I was shy. And everyone there knew each other already. So I just kind of put my head down, just do my job. And I remember one of my friends, she pulled me into a room and she said, hey, people don't think you talk. And that's really hit me. At the moment, it hurts, right? Because I've been working so hard. My throughput was higher than most of the analysts in the team at the time. What do you mean I don't talk? But I realized that to be successful at these banks, you can't just put your head down. And I would say any job, right? You can't just put your head down. You need to be able to speak up for yourself. You need to be able to get out of your comfort zone, to be able to do whatever you need to do to be successful in wherever you are. So don't stop yourself. Don't limit yourself, and make sure you ask for feedback constantly. And don't just go and say, oh, can you give me some feedback? Just out of the blue, right? You want to make sure that, let's just say you did a presentation, and you should ask your manager, hey, what do you think I did well? What do you think I could do better? So there's a background, there's context, so it's more relevant. That's one way I normally do to ask to get feedback. And then the second thing is to have mentors, to have people who will look out for you and give you those feedback that you need to hear. Not what you want to hear, what you need to hear to be successful. And I was fortunate enough to have those people in my career at Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley. What I put here is you want to have both truth teller and cheerleader. What that means is you want some people who is willing, who care enough about you to give you the tough love. You might not want to hear it, but you need to hear it. And the cheerleader is the one who will always cheer for you, making sure that you feel appreciated of what you do for the company or for the team. And the third one is you never want to stop learning. It could be, there's so many different ways to learn. And this is what I just shared with Professor Greathead before the meeting. Growing up, because my parents didn't have the opportunity to go to college or they weren't as educated, we never had any books in my house. So the only books I ever read was textbooks. I never had the idea of reading for fun. And when I first started at Goldman, one of my mentors said, hey, you need to start reading to learn more on your own. And I just, whatever, I learned enough of the job. But I regretted not doing it earlier because I fell so hard as a first-year manager because I had no clue what I was doing, because I wasn't learning leadership. I wasn't reading enough. So since then, I always make a goal of listen to a book at least a book every month. I can't really focus on paper books, so I find different ways to do audibles. I do podcasts every day. So if you don't like paper books, it's okay. There's other ways you can learn. So make sure you keep up. Start now. Don't wait till later on in your career, and that's when you start learning. So as much as you can, I'm happy to share some of my favorite books that really helped me with my career at the end, if you're interested. And the next one is build positive habits and discipline. So as I share, I'm also a competitive lifter, and people always ask me, how do you do that with your career and with everything you get involved in? A lot of it is just the habits that I built throughout my career. For example, after work, the first thing I do, I change to gym clothes. And it will force me to go lift right after because I'm already in my gym clothes. There's no question why I can't go lift now. So that's just a little habit that I built. And then the discipline, every day, you're not going to have motivation to do everything you want to do, right? When I was at Goldman, I was working 60 plus hours every week. I was exhausted at the end of every day, but I was disciplined enough to take 2 hours of my night to go lift. So you want to build whatever you care for. It doesn't have to be lifting, obviously. It could be anything that you care for. You should make time for it and build those habits and discipline. And the next one is be consistent at your job. If you have to be able to build a brand at your work you want to be the go-to person of a lot of people. One of the tricks that I always have is I underpromise and I overdeliver. What it means is if I tell you, hey, I'm going to get this done by Thursday, guess what? It will be done on Tuesday. So you buy yourself time, but you will overdeliver. So that's why people will trust you more with the work. And obviously, don't ever overpromise and underdeliver, meaning, oh, I will get it to you by end of day, and 2 weeks later, it's not done. Like, don't ever do that. But that's what I always share with my analysts and associates in the team is always underpromise and overdeliver. Communicate as much as you can, set expectations so people know when you can deliver things. Don't over promise and then you can't deliver. And then next one is build relationships with people. I don't like using the term network because it sounds very scary for a lot of people, especially the introverted, crowd. But you want to be able to build meaningful relationships with people throughout your career. You never know what each relationship will bring to you, and also what you can offer them as well. And throughout my career in finance, not every day is roses. Some days are very difficult. But I was fortunate enough to find those people who can help me through some of the challenges I had, especially at Goldman Sachs. And you have to be able to get out of your comfort zone. For example, public speaking is terrifying to me. But guess what? I will volunteer and do these things because I want to get better. So make sure that anything you do, don't stay stagnant. Make sure that you push yourself in different ways and be self-aware of what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, so you can continue working on them and use your strengths to be able to be successful at whatever you do. And the next one is your career is a marathon and not a sprint. What that means is you need to be patient. Sometimes the promotion might not be coming as fast as you would like because of many other different factors. So you need to be able to figure things out, learn from your mistake, learn from the setback, and come back stronger, right? You don't want to sprint so hard and then you get so burned out after a year or two and then you don't want to do it anymore. So just take it slow, be patient with yourself as you're starting out your career in whatever field you do, but make sure that you take care of your mental health, take care of whatever you need to do at home, set boundaries at work as well, because I remember there's times that I didn't set the boundaries because I wanted to sprint. I wanted to get to the top as fast as I could, but that was at the cost of somewhat of my mental health, the time that I could spend with my family. So you have to learn how to balance that, set boundaries, and be patient. Things will happen, but if you can't take care of yourself, you can't move up. And the next one is have a hobby. And I think I always stress this with everyone, is you have to have a personality outside of work. Work can't be the only thing that you do, or school, right? Have something you have a passion for. So for me, obviously, it's lifting. That's my other life outside of work. I spend a lot of time lifting. I'm very involved in the lifting community. I want to inspire people to be fit and healthy using lifting or exercise as a tool to help with your mental health. But it could be anything. It could be music. It could be, hiking. It could be traveling. But make sure you have something you do and not just work and that's it. And the last one is be involved, get involved, give back when you can. I came from next to nothing. My parents didn't have a lot growing up, so but I'm very fortunate to be here today because of them and a lot of the help that I get throughout my life and my career and at BYU as well. So I always have a passion to give back, and it gives me a lot of joy and happiness, and I would challenge you to do the same as you grow, as you learn, continue to find way to give back to the community. So the next one, and then this is focusing on resume. And if anything out of this presentation today, I do want you to take this away of how to build your resume. I'm not sure where you are at your school right now, but to be able to get a job or an interview, you need to be able to have a good enough resume that can get you into the door to even get an interview. So as a student, your resume should just be one page, one side. There's no need for multiple. I have been in the industry for 10 years now, and so my resume is a little bit longer. It's 2 pages, but for you as a student, there should not be any reason why it should be more than 1 page. It should be easy to read. The reason for that is, as a hiring manager and as a recruiter, we normally spend maybe 30 seconds looking at each resume. And then if we like it, we might dig a little bit deeper. So the first impression of the resume is so important that you want to make sure that it's very easy for us to read. It's very easy for us to point out some of the key things that you did. But if it's, you use different font, there's not clear bullet points of what you're trying to say, it's out of the window, and I won't even look at it. And make sure that there's no spelling errors, there's no grammar errors. This is your first chance to get an interview with whoever you're applying for. So you want to make sure that is perfect. Try to look through it with your friends, your family, the Career Center services, your professors. There's so many things that you can utilize at BYU that people can look at your resume. That's one of my pet peeves, is when they have grammar errors and spelling errors on resume, and that will be out right away. I don't care. Just because it just shows that you are not paying attention to details, and this is key to get an interview. So make sure that you proofread it with everyone you know, if possible. My resume has gone through so many people, probably 50 plus people at this point. So just make sure you do that. And then for each application, you should tailor your resume accordingly. So don't just use one resume for all. So let's just say if you apply for an operations job at Morgan Stanley, you want to make sure that you have certain things that you have done to improve processes, for example, so that is tied to some of the key things that operation does. Or you apply for a client-facing role, for example, you should have some of the client-facing experience that you have done. It could be, I was a cashier at BYU bookstore. That is okay. But you want to show what that experience has done for you to help you build your client service skills. So it's okay to put in, I work at a restaurant, because working at a restaurant actually can be very intense, right? So you have to multitask, you have to take in orders, you have to clean, all those things. That shows you can multitask. You have client service. So make sure that you tailor those experiences that you have in a way that it fits with the job. And obviously don't lie. on your resume. I have had experience before when a candidate put in that he knew how to do all this coding, R, Python. And when I asked him, hey, can you explain your experience with these tools? Because we are looking for people with these tools. And he said, oh, the recruiter just told me to put on the resume. He had no idea what these even mean, right? And the interview was 10 minutes. I was like, I'm done. Like, there's no reason for me to move on with this candidate. So just make sure anything you put on your resume, you can justify what you did and don't lie. And then in terms of the content, some of the mistakes that we have seen, people actually put in the wrong phone number or email. So when we try to contact the candidate, we can't even find them. So make sure those are absolutely correct. LinkedIn is very big in finance, so make sure that if you do have LinkedIn, it's on there. If you don't have LinkedIn, you should get LinkedIn, because that's the first thing I look for a candidate is their LinkedIn. I normally review them before the interview, and obviously the resume as well. So if you don't have it, create one. Make sure you put information about your personal experience on there. The second one is about your school experience. So GPA, absolutely you should put on it. Especially for the banks, we do look at your GPA. So the average we normally look for is over 3.3, I think at Goldman, and then for Morgan Stanley is 3.0. So do put it on there. You don't have to have straight A's. We do want students to be well-rounded. I mean, if you have straight A and then you also do all these other things, great. But a lot of times, some straight A students, that's the only thing they do. We want to look for people who want to get involved and do more than just go to school and study and that's it. You can put in relevant coursework that you do. So let's just say if you are in the Kennedy Center doing one of the languages and you're trying to apply for a job at Morgan Stanley, so maybe put in some of the business classes that you have taken if you have, or try to look for those classes in the future. Put in Excel classes that you took, business writing, if you can, but find different courses that might tailor to the job accordingly when you apply. The next one is your work experience. So make sure that school, because you're still a student, make sure school is the first section of your resume. The second is your work experience. And sometimes you might not have a lot of work experience. It's okay. You can use project works that you did in your classes. You can list out what you did, the outcome, what role you play in that project. That is okay too. But like I mentioned, if you work at a restaurant, it's also okay to put it there. But make sure that you cater each of the bullet points to the job that you're applying to so it's applicable to the job. Anything extra activity involvement that you do, you should put on there. So if you are the president of a club, put it there. You have competed on a case competition, put it there. It's okay to put your mission on there, but make sure that you use terms that people outside of the church or BYU could understand. So instead of saying missionary, maybe using representative for the LDS church, but make sure you use terms that it's easy for people to understand. Some people might not even know what a bishop is, right? So make sure that instead of using that word, maybe try to find maybe a church leader. That would be a better word for it. And the last thing is your skills, your language, your interests. If you have a foreign language, I know a lot of students at the Kennedy Center do have a language skill. Make sure you put that there. You don't need to put English, but if you speak, for example, I speak Vietnamese, I put Vietnamese on there. If you speak French, Portuguese, a lot of the job in the banks do require another language, depends on the team that you're on. So a lot of the speakers we look for is Spanish or Portuguese speakers. So if you have those, make sure you put in. If you have any computer skills, make sure that is on there as well. And also the level of expertise that you have on each of the skill. So if you know how to code, make sure you put it there. And the last one is, I always stress to students to put in their resume is your hobby and your interest. And this kind of set you apart from other candidates as well. And I remember my interview at Goldman Sachs, my last interview, we spent half of the time talking about my lifting experience. I can talk about lifting all day, right? So it makes things a lot easier during the interview when I can talk about something I'm very passionate about. So we didn't even go into anything technical, which is great. So I don't have to, go through those. But lifting, I can talk about that. And then my interview at Morgan Stanley, we spent half of the time talking about traveling because I've been to a lot of places. I love to travel, love meeting people. And my current manager happened to love travel as well. So we spent half of the time talking about traveling. So it makes the conversation a lot easier. So if you have any unique hobby, you have any unique talent, make sure you put it on there. And this is what I always tell people. I spend more time with my colleagues, my team, more than my own family. So I have to like you. So during the interview, I will make sure that we talk about some of your interests to make sure that you are a good fit for the team, a good fit for the firm, and also you do more than just working. Are you interesting? So those are the things that we will look for. So those are just some quick tips on resume. I'm happy to connect with you either through LinkedIn or after the meeting to go over your resumes. You have them ready, or send them through LinkedIn. I'm happy to look at them as well, or just connect with me. I'm very active on LinkedIn, so anything I can help, I'm happy to. So I'll open up for Q&A.
So some of you may have to run, but we will have your questions. I want to follow the class tradition and ask me a few of our flash questions. I don't have any of yours yet, so if you have them, please add them in. I'm just trying to catch up on this. But first of all, I wanted to ask, what is the most interesting thing you've learned working in business? And thinking about that as us coming from social sciences, liberal arts.
I would probably say patience, just because when you work at the firm like Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley, there is so much going on. And when you start, for example, myself, when I start managing people, I used to expect my team to perform at the level that I would, which is the totally wrong mindset. Everyone learns differently, right? Everyone performs differently. Everyone came from a different background. What motivates me might not motivate someone else. So I have to learn to be very patient with myself, but also my team member as well, because of those differences. And you will be surprised, as in a firm like Goldman Sachs or Morgan Stanley, things move really fast because we have to follow the market. But take the time to learn about your colleagues, your team members. Be patient with them as much as you can. It will do great for you.
What's the hardest thing about your job?
Hardest thing about my job. In general or right now?
Sure. Either way.
I would say because I'm newer to Morgan Stanley, I grew up at Goldman. Went through the analyst program. So I feel like I was able to navigate Goldman Sachs very easily. But at Morgan Stanley, I'm a little bit newer to the firm. I'm still learning the culture, still learning the firm culture, but also the office culture. So it's a little bit harder right now in that aspect. I think in terms of the technical skills, I was able to learn it very quickly, but I think the culture aspect is something that I'm still learning. I wouldn't say it's super difficult, but it's still something always top of mind for me. How can I do better in my job at Morgan Stanley? How can I get connected better with people here? Because the culture is completely different from what I came from at Goldman Sachs.
Okay. A lot of us here are interested in policy and politics. What do you think is the social responsibility role of business?
That's a very tough question. Wow. I have to think on this one. Can we skip to the next?
I don't know. What are the rules?
What's the rule? I have to think on that one. Well, I will say, I guess one of the biggest role in the biz office, we want to grow. We want to give employment to people in the community. We want to give back. But I think the other thing right now, Morgan Stanley really focuses on right now is more climate change, just because of everything that's going on right now. We actually just created a team that really focus on that issue. How can we reduce the footprint of carbon? How can we help the community improve our climate? So that's one of the things that we focuses on. I know that's a fine line to walk with a lot of different views in the U.S., but that's one of the things that it's very top of mind for Morgan Stanley right now.
Okay, there may be some other questions here, but the last one on the list, because you've answered so many of them already. What do you think is something that BYU students ought to understand better about international students who are here on campus?
That's a very good question. So I think when I first came to BYU, I did feel like an outsider for some time, just because I don't speak English fluently, right? English is my second language, and to build friendship with people here was a little bit difficult because I feel like BYU can do a little bit better job with diversity, if you have to ask me. So I felt for a long time as an outsider, but I think it got a lot better as I started getting involved in different things on campus. I got out of my comfort zone. I talked to people, really practiced and pushed myself to learn how to speak English better. But I think the other thing the students can do to help is help these students to speak English better. Help them, right? Don't make fun of them. Don't tease them because they have an accent. We have an accent, but we also speak another language fluently. Right? So make sure that you be conscious of that. We work really hard as international students to speak another language. So be kind to them. Take them in as much as you can. Just have an open arm. Maybe they might look different than you, or maybe they don't even go to church, right? But it's okay. They just came from a different culture. So be kind, be nice to them, help them where you can. But I was fortunate enough to be able to build a lot of that relationship with BYU, that people helped me through a lot of these things. But if you know of any international student, take them in. Don't be shy. Reach out. Ask them questions about their culture. Everyone loves sharing about their culture. I do. I love talking about my Asian and my Vietnamese heritage. So learn a little bit about them. They are here to learn from you, but you can also take the time and the interest to learn about them as well.
Questions? I know we're out of time.
Do you think that study abroad internships are something that would be useful to include on a resume? Absolutely. So I did my program through the Kennedy Center, and I think it speaks volume of your openness to learn about different cultures. And I love my experience because it taught me how to interact with people from different countries. You in a country that you don't speak the language. We went to Japan. I don't speak Japanese, right? A lot of people they don't speak English either. But you figured out a way to interact, to learn about their culture, and it will be very helpful in your future job. Because, for example, at Morgan Stanley or Goldman Sachs, I work with international teams on a daily basis. Right now, I work with the team in Mumbai a lot. At Goldman Sachs, I work with people from Tokyo, Singapore, Sao Paulo, London, you name it. There's so many people I interact with on a daily basis, with different culture than mine. They speak different languages, but a lot of time it's take the time to learn about them, learn about their culture, learn about their language. And I credit a lot of that through my experience of going study abroad. I did a study abroad myself at BYU. That was one of them, and then I did another one through the Kennedy Center. So I did a few, and obviously it was on my resume. I don't put it on there right now just because I've been in the industry for a long time, but absolutely, as a student, if you did that, please make sure you put that on. Sure. Where would you qualify that on the resume? It should be under your education, but it also depends on the type of experience that you did as well. So let's just say if you did an internship in the UK, let's just say, then put it under your work experience. But you can word it in a way that it show that this is a study abroad, and then you did the internship with a study abroad.
So it's really interesting to hear about the wide array of different things that you've done since your time at BYU and after. And I guess I'm just curious um, how, I guess in part, how you've kept a balance as you've been a very good student, as you've been involved in extracurricular things. In addition, that's a lot of time to be spending exercising every day. I think it's awesome. But I feel like everyone hits like a breaking point. So what do you do when you hit a breaking point and there's too much, or how do you balance so you don't push too much on your own plate?
Yes. So I actually went through that period of my life right before COVID, because I was doing so much. Because I'm just very passionate about a lot of things that I do, lifting, community, work. I was telling Professor Greathead that I give 120% every day at Goldman Sachs, just because of the intensity, the requirement that they have there. I love my experience there, but to the point that, yes, I hit my kind of breaking point. And I had to take a step back, and in a way, I'm grateful that COVID happened, in a sense that it's forced me to slow down. So I learned how to prioritize different things instead of trying to do everything every single day, right? So during COVID, I took a step back in terms of my social life. I have a very big social life as well, besides working and training and community work. So I took a step back on my social life and focusing on what will help me in terms of my mental health. So I read a lot more during COVID. I went hiking a lot more. Just do the certain things that will help your mind. Obviously, I did use therapy as well, right? So use different tools to help you prioritize different things in your life. You don't have to do everything. That's the mistake I made, that I just tried to do everything. And now I learned to balance it a lot better, saying, okay, after Goldman Sachs, I will find a different job that will give me a little bit of time back. So now I only work 40 hours a week instead of 60 plus every week. So I have a little bit more time to spend on lifting, on community work, but I can still travel because I work a lot less now. So you have to find different tools that can help you. And I think therapy is a great thing. So I used that because it was free at work. That's one of the things that banks do really well. They do give you services to therapy for free. So you can go meet a professional to talk through your challenges. And I learned a lot of different tools doing that, a lot of therapy sessions. Well, one of them I will share. One time she asked me, when you go back to the office, walk behind someone who walks really slow. Because I'm very impatient, very impatient. And she asked, do that and enjoy the walk back from her office to your desk instead of running back as fast as I could because I have a million things I have to do for work. So I forced myself to walk behind someone who walks really slow that day, enjoy the walk instead of checking my work email as I walk crossing the street. So those are some of the tools that I learned through therapy that can help me slow down. I take a bath every day now. That's my me time. I read my book, well, I listen to my book during that time. So there's many different ways that you can do to help balance. And sometimes you had to, at least for me, I learned it the difficult way. So make sure that, yes, there are things you're passionate about, but make sure that you take care of yourself as well instead of trying to please everyone else. Does that answer your question? Yeah.
Okay, and this is not, I promise to heckle you, right? But this is not a heckle. I'm a math person, and so that's the way I understand the world. And you mentioned that you assess the risk of various institutions. And I may not have told you this before, but I actually teach a class at BYU on mathematical finance. And it has some pretty sophisticated mathematics in it. So it's just a little confusing to me, frankly. Love y'all. Why you're here? Like, what do they not have to do like serious hardcore mathematics?
No. So,
So that would be good for them to know.
yes, so like I mentioned, I did marketing at the Marriott School, and then I did geography. That's just because that was one of my passions to learn about people and culture.
But when you're assessing risk of those institutions, you don't do some kind of heavy.
So we, at least in my job right now, the role that I'm in,
Yeah.
it's not so sophisticated like that. We have teams that will do that,
You
but
do.
my team
You
does
do
not
have
have to go
quants.
through that. The quants people will do that. So within these banks, there's so many different teams, so many different functions that you can do that does not require you to be an expert in finance, an expert in math. There are functions that will require that, and if you don't have that, they won't even look at your resume. But there are roles, for example, when I started at Goldman Sachs, I started in a team that managed data. So I did marketing research, when a lot of marketing research when I did my major in marketing. So they think that was a good fit for me to do data and research on different companies. And then my second role was in client onboarding because I just love interacting with clients. I have a great passion for client service, so I did client onboarding and help onboard clients and how can we streamline our processes to make sure that we can onboard clients faster to the firm. So those are the other thing I did. The next role I did at Goldman Sachs, I was the chief of staff for one of the divisions at Goldman Sachs. I helped with budget. I helped putting on town halls and everything. So like I said, there's so many different things you can do at these banks that most people are not aware that there are these opportunities. You don't have to be a math major. You don't have to be finance to get your foot in the door. But if you have a passion for trading or you have a passion for quant, you can always go there as well. But
Are those people relatively easy to come by? Or do you guys do a similar kind of recruiting?
yeah, so those they will do a lot more specialized recruiting for those people just because you have to have the skills already. They're not going to be able to teach you on the job.
Yeah.
Right? But all the things that we hire, at least in Utah, operations and compliance or other things that we do here, we will teach you everything on the job. Like I said, I did not study finance. I didn't really know anything about finance. I didn't know what a hedge fund was when I started at Morgan Stanley, at Goldman. But they taught me everything I needed to know for the job. But what I learned from college was important, though, just because I learned how to work with a team. I learned how to run a project. And I learned how to interact with people. I learned how to present. I learned how to put presentation together. I learned how to do Excel. So those are the things, the soft skills that I learned from BYU that really helped me excel in my career. But in terms of the hard skills, finance, I didn't have any. And I just kind of learned throughout my career. And I did a lot of self-learning as well. Even in the role right now, I'm in credit risk. I never did that at Goldman. So a lot of things I just Google, Investopedia. And it's okay. You learn new things every single day. So don't be scared to look at these banks. Don't be scared to look at different businesses because they will have something that might fit you.